This is about discovery and exploration.
Yes. What does that look like?
What you're seeing here is the iLibrary.
Nice.
No idea is a bad idea.
Design thinking offers people a different way of solving problems. We really need to figure out processes to be able to tackle hard problems in schools, and design thinking thinks a really good solution to that issue.
2 years ago, Riverdale turned to IDEO to teach RCS teachers how to use the design thinking process.
IDEO is an innovation consultancy, and we're using design to help organizations create new futures. Everything around us is designed, including our systems of education. If we realize that they are designed, we can realize that they can be redesigned. And what we're focusing on here is how do we activate teachers to become part of that process? So we've heard about teachers who've been using design process to rethink curriculum. How are they designing the lessons that they're doing with their kids in order to help them learn more effectively?
Michael Schur is a great second grade teacher. He figured out, like asking the kids about their experience in the classroom, the bulletin boards that were above their height, they didn't feel like those bulletin boards were their own spaces. He changed it, so he actually moved the bulletin boards down so that the kids could actually have their space on the wall where they could pin up things, where they could put up their own work. I think that's such an easy idea. Didn't cost anything at all, and it really changes the dynamic in that classroom.
I think teachers are absolutely amazing in doing some of the most important work in the world. They have so many students, so many needs, so many pressures of all the different levels of society expecting on them. And it actually puts them in a really difficult position to be trying new things, to be applying their creativity to the context.
Now you get one each. One each.
A grant from the E. Ford Foundation in 2012 has helped Dominic's effort to expand design thinking at RCS and beyond.
The goal of the grant, the goal of the proposal was to certainly do some work at Riverdale. I mean, we're going to do design thinking here. We've tried this. We're starting to try and suffuse it through the school. But we've also invited people from public schools, charter schools, higher ed, so that we can create a sort of dialogue across various different educational institutions about how might design thinking be applicable in the education sphere more broadly.
In June of 2012, RCS hosted one of several conferences teaching educators the design thinking process.
Everybody is a designer. I thought we could just start with a quick discussion about what is design. A stapler works for the job that it's trying to do, right? What else? What's another thing? Do you like your iPhone? Where'd that come from? Okay. Yeah, tell me about your iPhone. It helps you learn.
Teams learn to use the steps of the design thinking process to define challenges and then to develop and refine solutions.
What we're going to do today, we want to reimagine the library for the 21st century high schooler.
The first step in the design thinking process is discovery. In this challenge, teams took research trips to places like the Bronx Museum or the Apple Store to find out what makes them tick.
They learn by doing.
Then the teams interpret the findings from their research.
All the library doesn't fit my personality, and no one's referring them to great books in the library. Like, none of the stuff is happening, and that's not because they don't like to read. That feels really related to me, to the customizing the library for each person.
In the ideation step, teams use information learned to find new solutions to a challenge.
Ideation means generating lots of new ideas.
This is a comfy reading space. Modular furniture.
Classed in small group study cells.
Library with a cafe in it.
Starbucks.
Special events.
An online tool for making space reservations.
Making the cafe a little more homey.
Prototypes are built in experimentation, then shared with others.
And our librarian over here Betsy can talk a little bit about what she's doing as she's walking through the space.
So our idea about the librarian is not somebody who's standing behind a desk, but somebody who's sort of milling about.
What you don't see here, but I'd like you to imagine, is that along all of these are the shelves with the books. They're not organized in a linear way. They're kind of interspersed among the nooks and crannies.
And then you could just say like, okay, I don't want to be totally quiet, I'm not going to be up in the quiet zone, but I would like to block out some of the distraction. Let me pop this up and come over into my own little cave.
The goal of this two-day workshop was to introduce educators, grad students, researchers, introduce them to the design thinking process.
The more I see it in play, the more I can imagine putting it into place in my job.
This way of thinking really plans out what exactly you're going to do from beginning to end, which I think is helpful for projects, for papers, even for doing homework maybe. If I wanted to create a new way of attacking my work, then possibly I would use this.
But I'm hoping to be able to use some of these procedures to get people off what they think they already know they want and on to something that's more student-centered.
What are some of the composting items that we put on this tray?
At Riverdale, design thinking education continues as it becomes another tool for innovation.
We had the 2nd and 5th grade students engaged in a 2-week project at the end of the school year, redesigning their classrooms. They came up with ideas like improving the acoustics of the classroom, making the color scheme of the classroom more engaging, changing the seating so that you could actually move into small groups quickly, come back into the large group. I think it's great that kids, for instance, in using a process like this, feel empowered to actually change their learning environments.
The design thinking process continues to evolve as well as Dominic spreads the gospel.
Sometimes you actually have to think about, what are the processes whereby change can actually happen? And I think that's something that this tries to give some answers to, tries to provide some answers to say, okay, here is a really robust process that's been used for a long time in a variety of different fields. How could we adapt that to education to make the process of change more viable for a wide variety of educators?
Visit the designthinkingforeducators.com website to learn more about the process, to attend a seminar, or to track the progress of the project.